Welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Thursday, October 25th. So glad you can join us. I'm Frenella Wedderburn. Two St. Michael families are now homeless after fire destroyed their houses early this morning. The blaze, which occurred at Deane's village, also damaged a third house. Selma Gurley and her daughter lost most of their possessions, only managing to salvage a fridge and a sofa. The owner of the second house, Stephen Martel, lost everything. Harriet Mayers, whose home suffered water damage, could not hold back the tears as she recounted the harrowing experience.
I was inside. I was in there. I just hear boof twice. Boof. I ran up the bar. When I came here, it's two houses, you know.
Yeah,
One
that
was
one
there.
and that
Well,
one, yeah.
yeah. So when I ran outside, I saw them. And I dropped back. I, these is people that just help me when I got nothing to eat. They just help me. And I feel very bad for it.
The Lewis family of Rock Gap Eagle Hall is struggling to come to terms with the tragic death of their loved one. Motorcyclist 24-year-old Jamal Elon Lewis died yesterday after he was involved in an accident along Hastings Main Road, Christchurch. His sister, Kellyanne Lewis, told Barbados Today her brother, the father of a 4-year-old daughter and a 10-month-old son, was a fun-loving and easygoing person. She said his death is a big blow to the close-knit family. In other news, this Thursday, a police officer who is currently on suspension was taken into custody this morning. Lawmen say Constable Deane Cumberbatch is currently assisting police in the Northern Division with a number of undisclosed investigations. Chairman of Crime Stoppers Barbados, Oral Reed, tells Barbadians they can help to arrest the recent spate of violent crime. At a news conference today, he said citizens must not only rely on government to fix the problem, but they should support law enforcers by providing information about known criminal elements.
I take a different view of what persons refer to as snitching. It is in previous societies we used to say that persons were just malicious. But it is important that persons take ownership of their communities. If we surrender our communities, stop communicating with the authorities and those persons who are charged with the responsibility of assisting us at the community level, then we would have surrendered to those persons who present with that behavior. And I believe that rather than using a word that carries a very negative connotation, we ought to see persons who share information for the protection of the wider community as heroes. We ought to celebrate those persons for coming out and taking that bold initiative, notwithstanding that this is entirely anonymous.
As Barbados races against time to meet commitments under international tax laws, Minister of International Business and Industry, Ronald Toppin, has announced the planned removal of a number of tax benefits that scores of international companies here currently enjoy. Chief among them is the abolition of the foreign currency earnings credit, the issuance of international business companies' licenses, and the international societies with restricted liability licenses. Announcing the move today, Toppin said the decision to remove the tax incentives and other changes were born out of the need for Barbados to fulfill its commitment to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development Base Erosion and Profit Shifting Initiative.
The BEPS process has re-emphasized the importance of state-to-state relationships and the cooperation between states that is necessary to promote effective tax and other information exchange practices. We must never be seen as turning a blind eye to the real concerns of other states. Experience has taught us time and again that no man is an island. Barbados' commitment to implementing Action 5 of the BEPS project, that's about the third time I've mentioned that dirty word, as well as the ongoing Economic Recovery Transformation Program, have caused us to critically examine our systems with a view to understanding how they contribute to Barbados' overall competitiveness or lack thereof and improving them.
Pointing out that the proposed changes were subject to cabinet approval, Toppin said the foreign currency earnings credit will be abolished and Barbados will be moving to a regime which will see the conversion of taxes across all business entities. The minister also announced that a new regime will be rolled out in January 2019 to maintain as far as possible the current benefits to the industry.
Which will seek to maintain as far as possible the current benefits to the industry. Again, the details will be taken to cabinet hopefully next week. What I will say is that shortly we will be announcing the nuances of the transition process and 2 new vehicles that will be used to traverse this global arena.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To the region now, flood victims in Trinidad and Tobago have been complaining that $15,000 will not be enough to get them back on their feet. On Wednesday, the Minister of Social Development and Family Services said there is more money for victims to access. Mark Basant has the story.
Look what's going on here this year. You can give me $15,000. How could you give me $15,000? 3 years while I give you and look what I achieved. I work day and night.
He's just one of the thousands of frustrated flood victims who's convinced that $15,000 will not cut it to help him recoup his losses. But this morning, Minister of Social Development and Family Services, Sharian Critchlow-Cabone, sought to clear the air on exactly how much a flood victim can access.
Once they would have had damages in all those 4 areas, yes, they can. And it could go even higher because they also have the $1,000 per individual for clothing and then school supplies. So yes, you are correct.
This is just a table showing the breakdown of grants accessible to flood victims, as indicated by Minister Coburn today, and shows persons can access grants for structural damage of their homes, also for plumbing and electrical repairs, to name a few. Minister Coburn indicated that several assessments were done at various regional corporations, mostly for the time being for furniture and appliances.
Thus far, we have done 1,502 assessments. At present, as at 10 o'clock this morning, we would have printed 194 grant checks. We expect to complete an additional 253 by this afternoon. And as at Friday, the 1,502 applications that have been processed, checks will be ready for distribution for those persons.
And on the international front, U.S. President Donald Trump may send up to 1,000 active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border. Today, Trump hammered away at the issue of illegal immigration ahead of the November 6 congressional elections, with a caravan of Central American migrants trekking through Mexico. More in this report from Reuters Television.
In a tweet Thursday, Trump, who has railed against the caravan for days, said, "I am bringing out the military for this national emergency," a move sure to stoke divisions over immigration as Americans prepare to vote in next month's elections. A U.S. official told Reuters the military is examining a request from the Department of Homeland Security for 800 to 1,000 troops who would help Border Patrol agents prevent the Central American migrants from reaching the United States. The troops would join more than 2,000 National Guard troops already on the border, assisting border agents with logistics and infrastructure. They would not be involved in law enforcement activities, which would be prohibited by federal law. Thousands of Central Americans have been streaming through Mexico in recent days, many seeking to escape violence, poverty, and government corruption in countries such as Honduras and El Salvador. A second group of more than 1,000 people started a similar journey from Guatemala. Trump and his fellow Republicans have sought to make the caravan and immigration major issues in the run-up to next month's congressional elections.
The Democrats
want caravans. They like the caravans.
Warning of a, quote, migrant onslaught and vowing to pull back millions of dollars in aid to Central American nations if the migrants are not stopped.
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website at www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good evening.